Conversation with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, good evening. For once, we're not going to talk about Brexit, so I hope that's not going to have you falling off your seats as you're preparing to settle down for an hour of interesting conversation, and thank you once again for listening. This week we've got another subject, and it's Mr. Corbyn's bad manners. Mr. Corbyn has decided to snub the Queen and not attend the state banquet when Donald Trump comes on his state visit later in the year, and Vince Cable is going to do the same. Vince Cable, you may remember, is the leader of the Liberal Democrats, if you remember who the Liberal Democrats are, which you might have forgotten because they haven't had a lot of publicity recently, and perhaps this is one way of achieving it. Vince Cable actually has gone on the record and said what his view is, so it's worth hearing that.
I'm all in favour of President Trump being invited here for business-like discussions on defence or security trade where we have common interests. That's the job of politicians. But honouring him with a state visit does seem to be excessive.
Well, I think that's a peculiar view. It's all right to talk to Mr. Trump, but we can't give him dinner. I mean, it's just get a cheese biscuit or something, or perhaps a nice Bath Oliver washed down with a glass of water. It just doesn't seem the right approach to diplomacy when the role of senior politicians is to get on with the world as it is. And if you think of the visitors that we've had over the years, and you go back to the former Romanian leader Ceausescu, who came in the late 70s and was awarded an honorary knighthood by the then Labour government, but you think of President Putin who's come, Chinese presidents have come, to great contention. The late Emperor of Japan, Hirohito, came, and of course he'd been the leader of Japan during the Second World War. It's not about the individual, it's about the relationship that people have with those countries and the need to have sensible and friendly relations. And of all the countries we need to have a friendly and sensible relationship with, the United States must be top of that list. All the issues we have around security, whether it's the Five Eyes issue and the communications cooperation that we have to understand what is going on in the world, try to make the world a safer place, whether it's NATO and the defence that we've offered to Europe since pretty much after the Second World War, started just a few years after that, that has preserved peace and security, our cooperation in terms of nuclear technology so that the Trident missiles are provided with American technology. But it's not just that, it's leadership of the free world. It's showing that the free world has values that are worth supporting: democracy, the rule of law, and free trade, things that we have in common with the English-speaking world among others, but most particularly with the United States. And therefore it seems to me that what Mr. Corbyn and Sir Vincent Cable are doing is sort of petty politicking. It's the student union approach to politics. We don't like you very much, so we won't turn up and we'll stick our tongue out at you in disrespect. It's not in the interests of the nation. It's in the interests of their short-term political popularity. And it's frankly just not serious-minded or statesmanlike. Anyway, we've got lots of calls coming in. And first of all, I'm going to go to Chris in Richmond. Chris, good evening. Do you think Mr. Corbyn could go, or would you like to take his place?
No, I think I profoundly disagree with what you said. I mean, you and I'm a Catholic as well as you. I don't think it's particularly Catholic or Christian to have a president of the United States that locks children up and separates them from their children. I'm sure you wouldn't like it if yours. I don't suppose you'd like it either if he made comments about grabbing a woman by the P-U-S-S-Y if it was your wife or your children. Are those the kind of values you want to defend, Jacob?
Well, we've had a state dinner for President Putin. We've had state dinners for the President of China. Now, the President of China is not democratically elected by anybody. He's appointed by the Chinese Communist Party. The President of the United States... No, I'm not.
You're getting away from the issue here. You are. Those comments were absolutely offensive. And a member of your own party, Nadine Zahawi, a Conservative MP, has said that the Muslim ban that Donald Trump was putting in state would have impacted him directly. Is that the kind of values that you support? I'm sorry, two wrongs don't make a right here. And you're avoiding my particular point about his comments and his treatment of children.
I think you're completely missing the point. He is democratically elected by the people of the United States to represent them. That's their choice. I don't have to like or dislike any of his comments because I'm not one of his voters. His voters are the people of the United States, and they have chosen...
If you meet him in person in the House of Commons during a state dinner, would you challenge him on those comments yourself, or you accept, or do you think we need to brush them up and forget about it?
I would be honoured to meet the President of the United States. I met recently the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States, Nancy Pelosi. Now, I disagree fundamentally with a lot of what Nancy Pelosi stands for, but that's not my responsibility. She represents her country when she's abroad, and therefore it's my duty to meet her, whether or not I agree with what she says.
But when you do meet, if indeed you do meet him, are you going to challenge him on the things we talked about, the Muslim ban, the separating children from their families, which is something your government does as well? I mean,
actually, do you know,
about women?
If I met Mr. Trump, what I would want to talk about him, to him about, are things that are in the interests of our nations, not domestic American political things. I don't have a vote for him.
One of your own MPs potentially not being able to travel to the United States.
What I would want to talk to him. Nadeem Zahawi can go to the United States. If that were a current issue, that would be something to talk about, because one of the things in international relationships is to discuss things that affect your citizens. That's part of your job. But you need to meet people to have those conversations, don't you? And it's not for you to decide who's elected President of the United States, is it?
But you're missing the point here. You're not prepared to challenge him on some of the fundamentally un-Christian values and comments he's made. I mean, the separating of children, you yourself support the government's current policy, which means if you don't own over a certain amount, families can't be united. Tell me where in the Bible God says that we want to have children separated because of Donald Trump or what Theresa May decides.
Well, I think you're slightly wandering from the subject. I don't think the Bible says specifically what either Mr. Trump or Mrs. May should be doing, that there aren't direct biblical instructions, and by and large the people who think they've got a hotline to God have got their lines confused. Anyway, we've got a text from Ian who says it's just a juvenile snub, so I rather agree with him, and I'm going to go to Colin in Finchley. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening to you, sir. I think Jeremy Corbyn is a terrible hypocrite. First of all, he's mixed with terrorists. So is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And also, Trump. Look, I don't like Trump. I mean, he's a bit of a rude pig of a man, and that is the truth. He's very rude. But you've got to show a bit of respect to the country if you want to deal with him. You've got to. You're going to do business with him. You've got to show a bit of respect to the rest of the government in America. It's not just Trump who runs the government, and there is a Senate there that has a lot to say with it. He just can't do what he likes. He thinks he can, but he can't.
Well, Colin, I think you're spot on in both senses of what you've said. First of all, you're absolutely right that Mr. Corbyn has met all sorts of people involved in terrorism, people causing real problems around the world, and he doesn't mind doing that, but he won't meet a democratically elected leader of our most important ally. You're also right to say that it's representing the country, isn't it? And the US has a whole system which needs to be respected, and that the president represents that, whether we like it or not. We didn't have a vote for him. Colin, thank you so much for your great points. I'm going to go to James in Reading. James, hello, good evening.
Hi, Jacob. Lovely to speak to you.
Well, thank you for coming through.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that all presidents, all prime ministers have done and said some unsavoury things. And in a time like Brexit and we're leaving, I think we need to be strong. We need to have strong relations with our closest allies. And by denying Trump, you're kind of denying America. And that's how some of them will look at it. And in a time with Brexit, we don't need all of this.
But James, I think you're right. And, President Obama came over and told us we'd be at the back of the queue. It was pretty unfriendly and tried to interfere in our democratic process. But still, I'd have had no objection to him having a state visit and dinner with the Queen, that he was leader of our closest ally at that point, and my political differences with him are secondary to that, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have, just in general, if you have a problem with someone, there's no better way than to sit down, talk like adults and debate it. So why would we not let him come over? If people are so offended by him, I mean, let them talk to him.
And isn't it odd that people are so offended by somebody who has a huge democratic mandate and is voted for, but none of this fuss was made when other leaders came over who were fated in the same way. Leaders of the opposition then didn't boycott it. And interestingly, you don't know how people will turn out. I went to listen to Aung San Suu Kyi when she addressed both Houses of Parliament in Westminster Hall, and praise was ladled onto her. She couldn't do any wrong. And then you look at what's going on in Burma now that she's president, and it's really a pretty unsavoury, difficult situation, tragic with the Rohingyas, and she's not doing anything about it. So you can't know what leaders are going to do next, and you've just got to deal with the world as it is.
Absolutely. And I think, if you live life in a glass house, the one thing that you say that could be considered offensive. If you look at everything else and all the other policies, you get a more rounded picture of a character, you know?
I think you're right. Thank you, James. I'm going to go to Hassan in Slough. Good evening, Hassan. What are your views on Donald Trump?
Yes, I think Jeremy Corbyn is actually wrong to boycott him. It doesn't matter what the politics are. He's the President of the United States, and we should accord him that courtesy. And I think Jeremy Corbyn's view or his behaviour is a reflection of the left-wing trash, I think. I mean, on one hand, he wants to boycott Trump, who, in fact, actually met with Kim Jong-un, a communist, in order to defease a global threat. And Jeremy Corbyn would have met with Kim Jong-un, but not Donald Trump. That one out.
I agree with you. Donald Trump was right to meet Kim Jong-un, wasn't he? That if that helps world peace, that's a good thing to have done.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I attended Parliament a few years ago, when Jeremy Corbyn shared a platform with Professor Al-Mazari, who's a Saudi dissident, a physicist, who in turn was in bed with the notorious Omar Bakri Mohammed, the ex-leader of Al-Muhajirin, and he was also pro-Hamas. That really doesn't make sense, because in the Hamas constitution they want to destroy the state of Israel. So I think it's just left-wing trash that's playing out. And also, I think in stark contrast, the way Conservatives behave with the opposition, I think is we rise above the politics. And the case in point is when I went to one of Tony Blair's talks in 1997 during the general election, auditory myself, but I had the courtesy, I gave him the courtesy of actually listening to him.
You're absolutely right. But it's just 1:15. It's 6:15. It's LBC with me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and it's news headlines with Thomas Watts.
Political leaders in Northern Ireland are to enter new talks to try to restore power sharing at Stormont. A 29-year-old man has been stabbed to death in Hackney in East London. Jeremy Corbyn has turned down an invitation to a state banquet for Donald Trump. LBC weather: rain and strong winds over much of southern England and Wales tonight, with a low of 6 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. Queues remain on the M25 clockwise going over the QE2 bridge after an accident after junction 1A for Swanscombe earlier on. It's also very slow anti-clockwise on the M25. Lanes blocked between junction 3 for the M20 and junction 2 for the A2 at Darrenth. That's because a car's broken down. In Greenwich, there were queues on the A102 northbound to the Blackwall Tunnel after a car broke down earlier. Also in Greenwich, there were queues on the Woolwich Road in both directions between Greenwich Market and the Woolwich Road flyover. That's going through the roadworks. In Wadden, Stafford Road is closed both ways because of an accident near the petrol station. And it's very slow on the North Circular Road northbound to the Barking flyover after an investigation earlier on.
This is LBC.
Have you signed up for a Race for Life yet?
I don't think there's one near me.
They're all over the UK until September.
I'm no good at fundraising.
Even £10 helps beat cancer.
I don't do running.
It's a walk in the park, literally.
Isn't it women only?
No, men can do it now.
What about my kids?
Well, they can join in. There's even a kids' obstacle course. The sooner you sign up, the sooner we can save lives. Please, sign up now at raceforlife.org in partnership with Tesco.
LBC.
I know what the Rachel hairstyle is. I know how to write hello on a calculator. I know the name of the world's first clone sheep. And I know which part of the room you should never put baby in. But I don't know my state pension.
Check your state pension and see how you can build on it with a workplace or other pension. Get to know your pension at yourpension.gov.uk.
F1 is a story of constant evolution. In the 50s, Fangio pushed the boundaries.
In the 70s, Team Lotus gave us speed.
In the 80s, Senna and Prost gave us rivalry.
And in 2012, Sky Sports gave it a home.
Now, here's to a new chapter. Sky Sports F1, the home of live and exclusive F1.
Hey, big man, it's your hunch speaking. Look, there are lots of things that get me excited. Like favourites on form, underdogs biting back, or pundits proved wrong. But nothing grabs me like Betway's 4 to score. Just pick the first 4 players to score in the selected games every week. Finally, my raw talent put to the test. It's hunch time. Heed your hunch with Betway's 4 to score. It's free to play for a chance to win 50 grand this week.
18 plus, T's and C's apply, bet the responsible way.
Hi there, I'm Jill from Network Rail with some important news if you're travelling over the early and late Maybank holidays. As part of ongoing work to improve the railways, we're carrying out essential rail upgrades across different parts of the UK. From Saturday the 4th until Monday the 6th, and Saturday the 25th to Monday the 27th of May. This means some services will change and some won't be running. To keep your plans on track, make sure to check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/May.
In the month-end sale at Oak Furnitureland, you'll get our solid hardwood furniture at really great prices. But it ends Sunday at a store near you.
Eddie Mayer on LBC.
Driving you home with Confused.com, showing you the way to clearer car insurance.
Welcome back. What we're discussing is whether Mr. Corbyn is right not to attend the state banquet that's going to be given for Donald Trump. Standard thing is to accept an invitation from the Queen. It's pretty bad manners not to accept an insult to the sovereign. But is it right in terms of foreign policy? Keep your calls coming in. Hugh in Wales says, hello, Jacob. Of course Corbyn is wrong. Also Vince and the Speaker Burko. Very unpatriotic. But Ben in Bristol, good evening. What's your view?
Hi, Jacob. Well, how far gone are we as a nation right now? We've got the horrors of what's going on in Parliament. You know, it's horrors, Jacob. The democracy being stolen, and now this Corbyn, single-handedly with this, shows that he is unfit to handle a post-Brexit Britain. It doesn't matter how good his views are on renationalising the railways and helping people out and this, that and the other, but if he can't humble himself, on the 75th anniversary of D-Day, wants to stick two fingers up to the nation that came and bailed us out in that time because he doesn't like stylistically, he doesn't like some of the things Trump said. By the way, Trump's a decent guy. I'm fed up of hearing how terrible and how horrible he is. He may have a few flaws, be a little bit loosey. He's done some brilliant things in America. I know a lot of people in America, a lot of God-fearing, kind people, and you know what? They get down on their knees every day and they thank God that that guy's in charge of the country, and they love what he's doing there. And we need this. We need to get on the coattails of what's going on because he is repeating that country. It's not on the news much, but America is booming economically. With a few simple changes, a few retweaks, and the blessing is flying on that land again, and they're booming, and we need to hook up with them. And this is a pathetic, ridiculous gesture.
It's childish, isn't it?
It is.
It's schoolboy politics. I'm more surprised by Vince Cable, who I thought was a rather serious-minded figure, than I am by Jeremy Corbyn, who's likely to do things like this. Thank you, Ben. Do any callers disagree with me? We've only had one so far, so if you don't think this is an insult to the Queen and that it's fine just to not turn up and go and have a pint in the pub instead of doing your duty as a politician to meet people and discuss things with our allies, then do call me on 0345 60 60 973. As I've said before, snowflakes are always welcome, so please call. Rob in Bedford, evening.
Hi.
Do you think it's an insult to the Queen, or are you happy for Corbyn not to go?
I think it's absolutely appalling that he's done that, any others. I mean, I think, this is another classic example of them really not quite understanding what their status is there. I mean, he's a representative of his people and people in general of the UK. What's important is not what he personally thinks to Donald Trump or Donald Trump is doing or has said. He has responsibility to...
OK, can you speak into your mouthpiece a bit more, because we can't always hear you?
Sorry, is that better?
That's better, yeah.
Okay. I don't know quite how much of that you got, actually, but what I was saying was that, he has a responsibility to this nation and to the people of this nation to make sure that we have an extremely good relationship with what is a very big player in trade and for military backup. I mean, it's not about his own personal view and how he thinks he's got the cheek to be able to make a decision based on his own personal feelings when he has a role which is responsible for all of the British people, or certainly the party, is just beyond me. And
It's not serious-minded, is it? Thank you very much. The line's not great, so I'm going to read out a tweet from Mark in Sussex, who says, people seem to misunderstand this Trump dinner. As in the military, you salute the rank, not the man, as you should respect the president for his office. Mark, I completely agree with you. It's not about Mr. Trump. He's been elected by the American people as president of that great country, and we should respect that office. Eamon in Hastings, good evening. Do you think...
Good evening, Jacob.
Would you go to dinner with Mr. Trump?
Absolutely. I couldn't wait. He's one of my heroes.
Fantastic. Why do you like him so much?
I'll tell you the real reason why I like him. I used to live in America for 30 years. I lived and worked over there in New York. Now I've lived in England for 5 years. So I still watch a lot of American television and news channels. So I absolutely see both sides. It is completely different what you see in America on one channel and what you see in England. So I'd just like to give a quick example, which is probably really simple, that the first man on your phone call-in today said Donald Trump locked up children in cages. But I looked this up, and I look at videos, and you can actually see, and the facts are that Barack Obama had the pictures that were shown in the newspaper saying that Donald Trump locked these children up in cages. They were actually taken 3 years before Donald Trump was even president. It was in the Obama administration. What they do is they crop in the picture and they say there's a child lying here. It's a detention facility where it's made of cages, but they make it out like he's actually got a cage like 3 by 3, and Donald Trump went round there and threw them in there. And Donald Trump came on press and said that's an Obama-era photograph. But nobody believes him, and this happens all the time. You watch one station that shows you the truth, and another station that hates him, that basically says Donald Trump is a Nazi. The other station says his daughter's Jewish. How would he be Nazi? Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely, and this Nazi term gets thrown around by silly people who just aren't willing to engage with the political debate, so just make these accusations.
Yes, exactly, and this is why it's sad, because this is lots and lots of people in England. They just see one side of the story. They don't see the other side. And now they think, Donald Trump's a horrible man. I don't think he should meet the Queen. I personally think the Queen likes him. I think she's got a lot of the same political ideas as him.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't like to speculate on the Queen's views, but the Queen always does her duty. And it's her duty to meet people, leaders of other states. It's not for her to decide whether she likes them or not. She represents our nation, he represents his nation, and Jeremy Corbyn's leader of Her Majesty's opposition. I think it's just childish. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Joe in Richmond. Joe, would you go to dinner with Donald Trump?
Jeremy, all the time. What a lovely fella. All these people that condemn him and everything, obviously never met him. Don't know nothing about him. I was with a political journalist last week who was going back to Edinburgh from The Guardian. Well, some of the things he was coming out with, and I said, well, who told you that? Where did you get that from? And it was just nonsense.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of hostility from him to people who never had the chance to vote for him. And the left hold him up as a great bogeyman. But nonetheless, he won an election in America, didn't he? And that's the key.
He did indeed, and he's turned the economy around. And these countries need to be run as businesses. They're all screaming, we need money, but nobody wants to, run it as a business. And businesses earn money, so everybody's happy. I mean, the values of the property's gone up. Everybody's flying around and doing their bit. The Palm Springs property's gone through the roof, and it was all in the doldrums when Obama and everybody was in there. All the whatever, the do-gooders or whatever.
Well, thank you for that. Does anyone disagree with me that it's an insult to the Queen and that Jeremy Corbyn and Vince Cable ought to turn up to dinner, that that's part of their job? If you do, call 0345 6060 973. But now I'm going to go to Shoabe, who's in Morton. Hello, what's your thought?
Hi, Jacob. Nice to speak to you. I'm a first-time caller, and
great.
I just had to call on this subject. Unfortunately, I don't agree with your views in this, and I actually do stand with Jeremy Corbyn for not attending and not showing up. And I'll go into my reasons very specifically.
Please do.
You say he's won an election and, he's democratically elected by the people of America, but that doesn't change the fact of who he is and what he stands for. I think the policies he stands for, the things he's put in place, I think some of them have been ridiculous. And a lot of people are saying this, but for example, one of the biggest things is the banning of Muslims from travelling to the country from, not all Muslims, sorry, from
not
the
all
seven
Muslims, has he?
Muslim
No, he's
countries.
he's banned some countries from going, but for US security purposes, as he sees it.
I understand. But then it's these things that he's saying and these things he's doing, it's sort of taking us back in time. We're not moving forward, and everyone says, okay, he's doing great for the country and that we should, at the time of Brexit, we need to be allies with them. He's in the process of putting up borders with Mexico.
Let me turn, all right, and we know all that, but let me turn the question round to you. You may disagree with some of the things Mrs May does if you're a Corbyn supporter. Do you think the President of the United States should refuse to see her if she goes to Washington?
That depends on the thing she stands for.
But you don't agree with the things she stands for. So but don't you still want her to be met when she goes to foreign countries and not snubbed? Of course. And isn't this how international affairs work? That you see the leaders of other nations. That's your job.
Yeah, of course. But then if you've got a leader, say, for example, Bashar al-Assad was coming here to the UK, how would people react to him being visited? Regardless of how he's been elected in his country and how he's holding on to power, no one here would be happy with him visiting.
But what if he were coming because it was part of a peace process? I mean, do you think Donald Trump was right to meet Kim Jong-un?
Of course it was. That was part of the
there
peace
you are,
process.
you see. So you're willing to meet people you don't like. So why is it just Trump? Why does Donald Trump attract this hostility when actually international relations requires people to meet each other?
Of course, but I wouldn't even agree with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia coming to visit in the UK now because of what's happened recently and all the things we've been seeing in the news. Unless it was coming that, okay, we're going to discuss these specific things, let's get these things fixed, then yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't want him to come in to entertain us and just ignore all the bad things that have been done, all the bad things that I've said, and just brush that under the table and just carry on, okay, so what are we going to do after Brexit?
Would you meet President Xi of China?
I would, if I knew, I don't know. Well, no, actually, because of what I know what's happening in China right now with the Muslims, with these concentration camps, I would only meet him to discuss those specific points. I wouldn't want to speak to him and say, okay, how can we help with trade relations, the UK, how can this... No, I want to talk about the issues that are happening over there. If he's coming to resolve those, then yes, otherwise I'm not...
But it's a chance then to talk about them, and if you don't meet people, you can't talk about them.
Fantastic. I am all for that. If there is a chance...
Look, thank you for being a first-time caller. I hope you'll call again, but it's 6:30. This is LBC with Jacob Rees-Mogg. It's the news with Thomas Watts.
The leaders of Sinn Féin and the DUP have expressed their willingness to participate in a new round of power-sharing talks. Discussions will take place in Stormont next month. Politicians have been urged to take inspiration from the murdered journalist Lyra McKee, who was shot in Londonderry last week. A 29-year-old man has been stabbed to death in East London. Another man was found injured nearby in Hackney this afternoon. Sri Lankan forces have exchanged fire with suspects in the Easter Sunday bomb attacks. Soldiers have been sent to investigate an explosion in a coastal town around 200 miles east of the capital, Colombo. LBC weather, rain and strong winds over much of southern England and Wales tonight. Scotland and Northern Ireland also seeing some showers, a low of 6 Celsius.
LBC at the weekend. Matt Fry.
I know you're one of those people who want to revoke Article 50, is that right? Right.
Mr. Davies said we would have the exact same benefits from outside.
Whatever you say about what was first posited in the referendum, that you want to revoke an article which would go against the very grain of this enormous democratic exercise that was the referendum. That is politically explosive.
Leading Britain's conversation. Matt Fry. Saturday mornings from 10 on LBC.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
BT Mobile have something for you. We can help you save your precious mobile data. Anyone with us has access to 5 million Wi-Fi hotspots, which is more than any other provider. If you're not with BT Mobile, maybe it's time you were. BT Mobile gives back more.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
BT. Be there. To verify, visit bt.com/moreplaces.
Have you ever bought an investment sold by Barclays, Halifax, Lloyds, Santander or any other bank or financial advisor? Investments like stocks and shares ISAs, investment bonds and certain types of pension can be risky. If you lost money with one of these investments, you could be owed thousands of pounds in compensation. Even if you no longer have the investment or the paperwork, here at Goodwin Barrett we can still help. To start your free assessment with Goodwin Barrett, text GOOD to 60777. That's GOOD to 60777.
A 5-star vacuum cleaner. Powerful, manoeuvrable, this baby is the real deal. From cat hair to cobwebs, this sucks in everything in sight.
Even you. That's right. This is a fake review, and I'm getting paid to write it. So while you're left with a dodgy vac, I'll be the one who's really cleaning up.
A fake review could cost you more than you think. A Which membership helps you avoid these lies. Search Which for impartial product reviews. Which, keep questioning.
Your business has come this far, but now's your time to soar into the skies of spectacular with a fast, affordable Funding Circle business loan. With decisions in as little as 24 hours and a dedicated account manager, there's no waiting around. So join the thousands of businesses who have taken out a Funding Circle loan and help your business fly. Apply today at fundingcircle.com. Authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. T's and C's apply.
My borders are blooming, but there's not a bee in sight.
Want to get your flower beds buzzing? Get to B&Q. You can pick up 3 pots of lavender for just £15. It looks and smells lovely and attracts bees, so it's good for the planet too. You can do it when you B&Q it. Individual price £5.87, 17 centimetre pot.
Hey, big man. It's your hunch speaking. Look, there are lots of things that get me excited. Like favourites on form, underdogs biting back, or pundits proved wrong. But nothing grabs me like Betway's 4 to score. Just pick the first 4 players to score in the selected games every week. Finally, my raw talent put to the test. It's hunch time. Heed your hunch with Betway's 4 to score. It's free to play for a chance to win 50 grand this week.
18 plus, T's and C's apply, bet the responsible way.
Eddie Mair on LBC.
Driving you home with Confused.com. Taking the confusion out of car insurance.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Well, welcome back. I'm sorry I bumped into the announcement. He was going to tell you to call 0345 60 60973, particularly if you think that Jeremy Corbyn's right not to attend and is not insulting the Queen, because that's our main topic of discussion this evening, is that the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of the Lib Dems have both said that they're going to boycott the state dinner with Donald Trump. They're not going to go. They're refusing to attend because they don't like his politics. And I think that it's their job to go. It's their duty, and that we have to have friendly relations with our most important ally, and it's all about the office of president rather than the individual. But one of the other things that's been happening this week is the Huawei leak. And this is the Chinese technology company that may be involved in 5G implementation. And there's a bit of a brouhaha, and the Cabinet Secretary, Sir Mark Sedwill, is going to ask ministers whether they leaked or not. I can't guess what they might say when asked that question. Nonetheless, he's going to ask them whether they leaked or not the information relating to Huawei being allowed to have some involvement in 5G. I slightly think this misses the point. Rather than worrying about whether or not something's been leaked, surely we should worry about whether Huawei, as a Chinese company with alleged connections to the Chinese state and to the Chinese security services, is the right company to be dealing with when the US and Australia have said no. But in a perhaps very British way, Cabinet Ministers are going to be invited in for a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit and asked on their honour whether they have leaked this information, with apparently a risk of 2 years in prison under the Official Secrets Act if it turns out that they were the ones who gave away the information. But that's not the main topic for this evening. Back to the main subject. Was Jeremy Corbyn right, is Jeremy Corbyn right, to boycott this state banquet? Graham in Wood Green, what's your view?
Good evening, Jacob.
Evening.
I just think that Mr. Trump, whether you like him or loathe him, he doesn't care. To me, he's not a politician. He just says things that people would like to see because he just doesn't care. And
but do you like the things he says?
Well, how can you fight against him if he's got the jobs in America? He's got America moving with jobs.
The economy's doing well, and he had lots of tax cuts.
Well, how can you go against him for that, Jacob?
Well, I think we could do with some tax cuts in the UK rather than a Chancellor of the Exchequer who thinks if we have high taxes and everyone complaining, that's a good thing.
Well, there's an argument against everything, isn't there?
There is.
Whether you've got £1 in your pocket, £100, or £1 million in your pocket, if you go to the shop, whatever shop you use, that loaf of bread and that pint of milk is still going to be the same price.
The same price. So, if Mr. Corbyn's not going, do you want to take his place? Do you think they should have a lottery to decide who goes in place of Corbyn and Cable?
I think he's just making himself a bigger laughingstock.
Yeah.
I really do.
That's right. Just before we went on air, I had a text from a friend of mine saying this makes Corbyn unfit to be Prime Minister. If he can't deal with foreign countries, what on earth's the point of having him in high office? Thank you, Graham. I'm going to go to Barry in Woking. Good evening, Barry. Do you think Mr. Trump is lucky that Corbyn won't be there?
I think Mr. Trump's lucky he's getting an invite. A question for you, without any spin or anything like that, just a straight answer. Would you invite a racist bigot into your house?
I think
just a yes or no, because he's a racist bigot and he doesn't care about this planet.
He's the President of the United States of America.
He doesn't. American economy is great. Go speak to Black America and ask how great America is.
Well, he won an election. Don't you believe in democracy?
Did he win an election, or was it rigged? Because there's a lot of rumours going around that hasn't actually. The reports out that he's actually had some part in that.
There are lots of nutty conspiracy theories. There always are. But let's not waste time with those. He won. He's the President of the United States, and he represents his country. And it's not for me to like or to dislike him. I don't have a vote in American elections, nor, I suppose, do you. Perhaps you'll tell me otherwise. We have a relationship with the United States that is above and beyond any individual politician, surely.
We do, but I wouldn't want a racist bigot in my country. Someone who tries to separate women from their children at borders. Someone who tries to ban Muslims
if you were listening earlier,
country.
You'd know that Barack Obama did exactly the same thing.
Did he? I
Yes.
can't remember Barack Obama trying to ban
That was the
Muslims
policy.
coming into his country.
He separated people coming across the Mexican border. That was policy before Donald Trump became president. I might leave you with that thought. I'm going to get to Keith in Nebworth. Keith, good evening. Hello, Keith. Is Keith there? Now then I'm going to go to Martin in Dunmode. Martin, hello.
Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. What are your thoughts?
I would. He has to come to the country, obviously, and meet who he has to meet. But as for coming to a banquet, and I think anyone who a right-minded person would absolutely refuse to attend it, because the guy is such an appalling person, misogynistic, racist, climate denier. He's just not the sort of person that any right-thinking person would want to meet.
Okay, so who would you allow to come to dinner?
Well, not very many people, really, for their... I think you have to look at each person on their merits, and there's...
Okay, so you wouldn't have the President of the United States. What about the President of China?
No.
Prime Minister of India?
No, he's very questionable views as well.
The President of Brazil?
No, not at all, no.
So, we're not going to do much in terms of international diplomacy if we have your list.
Well, no, but the question is you have to have standards, and I mean you question whether Theresa May shouldn't be seen if she went over because I mean I don't agree with her views at all, but I don't think she's a racist. I don't think she's a misogynist. I don't think she has her views, and I don't disagree with them. But the standards of the person of the President of the United States is the things she says, the things she does. Draft dodger. Climate change denier, the views on women, racism, overt racism.
So you'd only have people whose views you liked?
No, I don't.
So you just about managed
to have views of people I respect because they're right-thinking people who don't hate women and hate foreigners and are full of fear and hatred.
But what gives you the right to decide that a big democracy like America or like India is wrong to have elected the leader they've elected? Don't you think that's a little bit arrogant?
No, they can vote who they run, but it doesn't mean I need to respect them or want to see them in my country.
Not as individuals, but don't we want to have relations with the nation?
We have to have, on a macro level, we have to have relations with them. Of course we do. But
that means dealing with the individual, inevitably, doesn't it?
I mean, I wouldn't invite them to dinner. Would you invite him to dinner?
Well, yes, of course I would, because he's come to the United Kingdom.
Well, he's got similar views to you in terms of racism and that sort of thing. That's why you'd invite him. But I wouldn't have my house. He's evil.
Martin Oldbean, that's simply not true, and that was a rather cheap shot beneath you, really. So I'm going to go to Joanne in New Malden. Joanne, good evening. Hello? Hello? Would you go to dinner with Mr. Trump? Or not, as the case may be. I'm going to go to Ahmed in Swansea because Joanne seems to have been cut off. Ahmed, hello. What are your thoughts
Jacob,
on...
how are you? You okay?
All the better for hearing from you. Your thoughts about dinner with Trump?
Well, I have to say that, first of all, just not to go into all political details, I am a paying Conservative Party member.
Excellent.
And on this occasion, I do agree with Jeremy Corbyn and Vince Cable. And the reason I agree with Jeremy Corbyn and Vince Cable, for the simple reason, is that we cannot differentiate between the human being and the office of President of the United States. I will ask you a question. Do you have any respect for him as a human being without his office of the United States?
Well, I don't know him personally, but yes, I respect him through his office. I think he's entitled to respect for his office.
I will ask you the second question, Jacob, if you don't mind, please.
No, far away.
Have you heard the tape that was recorded on him in the campaign trail, in a bus, in the campaign trail, talking about women?
Okay,
that he himself said it's a true tape, but it is actually just locker room banter. Have you heard that tape?
I make no defence of that tape. That's not the sort of language I use or think people ought to use, and I think that's well known. But the American people voted for him knowing that tape existed, and I respect American democracy.
They did. It's a democracy. They did vote for him. But we'll give you an insight into that gentleman's psyche, into his ideas about women, into his ideas about people from different ethnicity, into his ideas into people of color.
But you don't have to like him.
Ideas.
You don't have to like him to recognise that as President of the United States, he should be treated at least as well as the President of China or the President of of Russia.
I have to say, with all these presidents, China, Russia, Brazil, all the ones you have said, none of them has expressed the views that Donald Trump has expressed regarding women, people of ethnicity, people of different... Yeah,
I'm going to squeeze in a quick call before we go to the news. Paul in Colchester, can we get your thoughts in about 20 seconds? Would you dine with Mr. Trump?
I wouldn't personally dine with him, Jacob. However, I do find everything that Trump stands for morally reprehensible, and as a socialist, I'm sure you will understand how I see this and why I see this. But in the context of the Normandy landings, which he's coming over to commemorate, I think that it's appropriate that the President of the United States is in attendance. And I think Vince Cable and Jeremy Corbyn obviously have to make their own decision in terms of how they see things.
Thank you, Paul. You're a noble socialist to have put it that way. I greatly respect what you've said, but it's 6:45 on LBC with me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and it's the news with Thomas Watts.
The main parties in Northern Ireland have been invited to resume power-sharing talks from May the 7th. It's as police investigating the murder of Lyra McKee in Londonderry have released an image of a man they believe to be responsible. Debenhams has named 22 stores to close next year as part of turnaround plans. The weather this evening, rain and strong winds over much of southern England and Wales, clearer elsewhere with a low of 6 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. On the M25 clockwise, there are queues from just after junction 29 for Romford going over the QE2 bridge to junction 1A for Swanscombe after there was an accident earlier on. In South Woodford, there are queues on the North Circular Road southbound. 2 lanes are blocked because of an accident at the M11. It's looking very slow on the A13 Newham Way going out of town. A lane's blocked because of an accident before the Beckton flyover. There are delays in Tottenham Hale. 2 lanes are blocked on Watermead Way southbound at Ashley Way because of an accident. And in Gravesend, there are queues on the A2 eastbound. 2 lanes are closed between Tollgate services and Cobham services because of an accident.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Andrew Pearce.
Jeremy Corbyn and Vince Cable, the Lib Dem leader, are boycotting the state banquet for Donald Trump. Are they right, or is it childish gesture politics?
Andrew Pearce on LBC.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Saturday, the lotto jackpot must be won. Oh, I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it!
Lotto. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere. Your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
When it comes to making a PPI claim, you can either do all the work yourself by complaining directly to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman for free, or you can contact the claims guys and get them to do all the donkey work for you. So if you don't have the time or the paperwork, or you're not certain you have PPI, make sure you beat the deadline on the 29th of August 2019 for making new claims by contacting the claims guys. Text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys. The great British weather. One day you're cozying in with the family, the next you're chilling out in the garden. But whatever you're doing, Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, unlike the weather. So for roofers who stop the rain coming in, gardeners for when the sun comes out, and other professionals in their trade, simply visit TrustedTrader.com.
To find the truth, you wouldn't listen to just one voice. You wouldn't believe just one story, or trust just one opinion. And neither would we. The Week magazine reviews all the issues of our day and where everyone stands on them. Sign up online and try 6 issues for free. Search The Week magazine today. After all, you shouldn't make up your mind on just one issue. Cancel anytime during the free period or continue with 13 issues for just £40.49.
Creative, strategic, logical, healthy. Minds like these make small businesses brilliant. So it's important to support your team in mind and body. Bupa Select Health Insurance takes care of both. Join as a new small business and your team will have access to a free employee assistance program in your first year of cover. Bupa. Healthy minds, healthy business. To find out more, search Bupa Business. Offer ends 31st of May 2019. Terms and conditions apply.
Ticket market, how can I help?
Oh, I'd like a ticket to Wellness Fest 2019, please. It's a weekend of self-discovery.
How would you like to pay?
Well, I believe money is a societal construct and that true value...
Credit card, debit card?
Oh, right.
Some people think they're so special, but with the daily jackpot on Paddy Power Games, someone wins by 10 p.m. every day. So don't think you're special if you win it.
Address, please.
I like to think of myself as a citizen of Earth.
Paddy Power Games.
Jackpots must be awarded by 10 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpots shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Eddie Mair on LBC.
Driving you home with Confused.com. The clear way to compare car insurance.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Welcome back. We've had a tweet to say, regardless of what anyone thinks of Trump personally, Jeremy Corbyn is showing a pettiness and is insulting the Queen by refusing to attend. He is being a child in refusing to attend the state dinner and is showing contempt for the office of the President of the USA. And more importantly, he is showing disrespect to the Queen. From Missy in London. I'm now going to go to Joanna in Doncaster, who is a new caller. Joanna, welcome. Thank you for calling. Joanne, I'm sorry. Thank you for calling. Oh, Joanne's not there. Okay. She is there. Hello, Joanne.
Hi. Yeah, hi. I am disgusted. I think that it is total disrespect to the Queen. I'm an ex-Labour member and Labour voter now, and I think he's childish. He'll meet with Hamas, IRA, etc., but will not meet the leader of the free world. Basically, I just think he's all wrong in every way. And that,
are you surprised, as I am, that Vince Cable, who I've always thought was a serious-minded politician, has made the same decision?
No, because he has his own agenda. It's all Brexit, it's all Remain. They have no idea on how the working man... I live in a mining town in Yorkshire. I'm turning my back on mainstream politics now because they have no idea. They're just in it for themselves. And I think many a good deal is done over dinner. I think you should definitely go, 100%. I'm all for Trump coming. I think people need to get a grip.
I think you're right, and I think we have to dine with our allies, and the US is a most important ally. Thank you, Joanne. Much appreciate your call. Hope you'll call again. And now going to go to David in New Malden. David, would you have dinner with Mr.
Jacob.
Trump? Hello.
I've got the strongest personal objections to Donald Trump. Firstly, here is a man who out-dodged the draft to Vietnam on some nonsense about bone spurs. Secondly, the last time he came over for a visit to do with the Second World War. He went to France and he didn't turn up to one of the most important ceremonies over there because I think he was watching television. Some nonsense was put out. He couldn't get there efficiently. Much more importantly to me, and I expect I'm speaking for quite a few people listening in here, I've been to the grave of my uncle who died fighting, having landed on Normandy, and I've cried with my mother, who was the first time she went to that grave when he was 35, or 35 years after his death. My grandmother, who found the news about the death of my uncle on her 60th birthday, having survived 5 years in the Blitz, she never got to that grave, and I think it's a total offence that this absolutely disgusting individual is coming over. The man's a coward, he's divisive, he's united. The issue of whether he's president of the United States is another matter. He'll go to Portsmouth, the centre of operations for D-Day, and his cavalcade and his total childish sense of himself will lead simply to him being the focus of attention.
But David, he is the President of the United States. That's the important point.
Who are buried in our country and buried in Normandy. I couldn't care less whether he's the President of the United States. He's not fit for it.
Well, but that's not your choice, is it? That's the American people who chose to elect him, and he's their commander-in-chief and he's their president, and he is respecting American war dead who died in the Normandy landings to make Europe free. Don't you have some respect for that?
Your Somerset constituency in that way. I'm disgusted listening to the nonsense you're coming out with, defending a totally obnoxious individual in this particular point. He didn't have the guts to go and fight.
Well,
and
but
nor did Bill. Have the sense of decency
nor did
to
Bill
go
Clinton.
To the graves and memorials of far better men than him.
Okay, but he's coming over to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Normandy landings. Bill Clinton was a draft dodger too. Do you have the same view of Bill Clinton?
Yeah, in this context, I would have, yes.
Would you have a dinner with him?
Trump is a far worse individual than Clinton, in that Clinton would have turned up.
Okay, so
it's
your view that outranks American democracy.
Watching the television, we all know that. I think Sarah Saunders got up and told a load of bull.
I don't think you know anything of that kind. You just don't like Mr. Trump. But he's the President of the United States.
Don't be so silly. I've given you a complete, simple definition or description of why it's totally unsuitable for this man to be there for this.
But I'm afraid you've been rather confused in your argument, because you want the American war dead to be honoured, but you don't want it done by their President and Commander-in-Chief. And that's the bit that's difficult to understand.
They're very brave men. But they should send
who he is honouring
else.
as president.
It's a pity John McCain isn't alive, isn't it? Because at least they could send somebody of worth like that and of stature.
Yeah, but he's not alive and he's not the President of the United States, so that doesn't really work. David, thank you so much. I appreciate your call. We're not going to agree. I'm going to go to Mark in Hitchin. Mark, good evening.
Hello, Jacob.
Hello.
I think it was totally unfair of you to defend President Trump by stating an untruth earlier to an earlier caller. You said to an earlier caller when you were speaking about the illegal immigrants across the American borders being split, the children being sent to detention centres.
Children were taken away under the previous president. That wasn't a change introduced by Donald Trump.
Well, hang on. With the greatest respect, it was. In April 2018, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, announced that it would make a blanket policy that 100% of the illegal...
But that policy was happening before.
All right, okay. The policy under the Obama regime, and I hope the Obamas are listening, or somebody who represents them are listening, was that the Obama regime would only separate children from parents when there was an issue of well-being or concern about the welfare of the child, or
the Obama regime separated children from parents. This is just characteristic.
Jacob, let me finish.
You've made your point. You don't agree with me, but Obama did the same. I've got lots of tweets to read out. Look, why don't you call Andrew Pierce next? I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. I've got a text I'm going to read out. Good evening, Jacob. yes, we should welcome President Trump. In the past, we've accepted many leaders and sat round the table with unsavoury leaders. How many people are squeaky clean? That's Anne in Blackburn. But I'm going to go to Alan in Fleet. Alan, hello, good evening. What's your thought?
Ultimately, I'd rather Trump wasn't there. I accept politic real. We have to deal with him, however obnoxious he is. Ideally, he should just be doing a working visit and not having the pomp and circumstance, because ultimately he wants the vision on Fox News of him being lauded as a world leader at one of these events. That's all he is interested in. He doesn't care about the American war dead. He doesn't care about anybody other than Project Trump. And that's what he wants. So that's
We've had state visits, though, for other American presidents, haven't we? When we have them because they're president. And they all like to come and inspect a guard of honour and so on. Of course they do.
Yeah,
but that's what you do with our allies.
We have to do that sort of visit. I'd rather we didn't. We shouldn't do that for anybody. We should have them working with the leaders, the political leaders.
But isn't it an important part of diplomacy? And that the Queen is a very powerful force for good in this country because she helps us attract world leaders who want to come and want to have state visits. And the role of the Queen's very helpful to the country.
She is. Unfortunately, I was very upset with your chap on earlier who said the Queen and Donald Trump were very similar people. That was outrageous.
Well, I don't. Yeah, yes, I didn't agree with that, as you may have noticed. I don't think we can speculate about the Queen's views. I want to squeeze in Jada in Hartford before we stop. Jada, very quickly, because we've got no time at all, if you're there. You're not, but time is... Are you there?
I just wanted to say... Hello?
Hello, quickly.
I just wanted to say that I don't think that Trump should be accepted into the country. I think that the whole thought that he's the legitimate president right now is a bit all over the place, because technically he wasn't voted in through the popular vote. It was through the Electoral College that he actually became president.
Thank you. I'm going to have to cut you off because we're out of time and everyone's waiting to hear from Andrew Pierce. And Andrew, would you have dinner with Donald Trump?
I certainly would, Jacob.
Thought you might.
Be delighted. Great to hear from you. That's Jacob Rees-Mogg. Now, coming up in the programme, we're going to be talking about